the Executive Director of Fiji Women's Crisis Center, Shimima, and your staff, regional training participants, invited guests, media representatives, ladies and gentlemen. A very good evening. Nisambula Vinaka, Assalamu alaikum and namaste to you all. Thank you very much for the invitation extended to me and my team, and especially to me to be your keynote speaker for this closing event tonight. This is my first official engagement with the Fiji Women's Crisis Center, and it is wonderful to see that we rise above our differences and dwell on the common ground to battle domestic violence in a much, much bigger manner. If I can take you back to the Easter weekend this year, the occurrence of domestic violence related in 2 deaths, and that brings to our nation the urgency to tackle domestic violence. Ladies and gentlemen, Fiji cannot wait to see women freed of gender-based violence. Our collective, united effort is critical as we battle to turn the tide of the increasing incidence and severity of gender-based violence within our regions. At the outset, may I congratulate and thank the Fiji Women's Crisis Center for the 30 years of commitment to the work around ending gender-based violence in Fiji and now regionally. I congratulate the participants who have come from the various Pacific Island countries, including our own, on completing this month-long training on sensitization to gender-based violence and also learning counseling skills. Fiji Women's Crisis Center has gained a lot of respect from the region in terms of gender work, domestic violence training, counseling, and of course in terms of male advocacy. And I'm also very pleased to see a number of good men in this group, because it is my firm belief that women and men in equal partnership are critical in combating gender-based violence in our own communities and countries. Men, ladies and gentlemen, can make a huge difference when it comes to combating domestic violence. And male advocacy can be structured to change mindsets which are so prevalent in all our communities. A lot of work on empowering the victims and survivors has been done, but what we need to do now is to use men to reach out to the perpetrator population and for them to be role models of real men. I wish to share with you an ad on the Sky TV Hindi channel that caught my attention some weeks ago. And this ad talks about cultural messages that we give our sons. And the message is, boys should not cry. The ad goes on to say, why don't we begin to socialize our boys and say, boys don't make girls cry, unquote. You would have heard from many experts in the last 4 weeks and are fully aware that according to the 2010 and 2011 Fiji Women's Crisis Center research, 64% of Fijian women have experienced intimate partner violence in their lifetime, and that each year in Fiji, 312 women become permanently disabled due to domestic violence. The Pacific Women's Parliamentarians meeting here in Suva last week to discuss the increasing incidence of family violence in the Pacific is very timely and should awaken all of us. The Fijian Prime Minister, Honorable Bainimarama, in his speech stated that the current levels of domestic violence in our midst is woefully and unacceptably high and is a cause for national shame. The high incidence of domestic violence in our region is a sign that we as Pacific people are failing the fundamental test of our values. The Fijian government has proven that it has the political will to address gender-based violence. Some of the milestones achieved by this government are the Constitution that guarantees protection of human rights of all citizens regardless of race, sex, gender, or marital status. The first domestic violence laws in Fiji's history are in place. We have strengthened the rights of women who live in de facto relationships. We have removed the old Victorian rules for the corroboration of rape. No longer does a rape victim's sexual history have any bearing on a case, nor are peace offerings accepted to let perpetrators of crimes go free. At the government level, we have zero tolerance for domestic violence in Fiji, whether it is men beating women, or women attacking men, or parents hitting children. It is not acceptable. So it's time to say full stop. And we have given instructions to all the instruments of the state that the perpetrators of domestic violence are to be subjected to the full force of the law. Our criminal laws are modern and gender responsive. The police have been instructed and trained never to turn away applicants for domestic violence restraining order or attempt to counsel anyone against making such an application. In the courts, even before a plea is taken on a charge of assault, the presiding magistrate or judge will ask if there is a domestic relationship between the parties, which includes extended families and clan affiliations. If the answer is yes, an interim domestic violence restraining order is imposed as a matter of course, and the assault charge and domestic violence restraining order proceedings take place simultaneously. However, in my 6 to 7 months that I have been in the office and in my role as the Minister for Women, I am sad to say that the practice falls far short of the ideals that I have referred to above. The constitutional, legal and policy framework in Fiji is very strong and gender responsive. What the society sorely needs is a change in the attitudes of individuals, society, and especially those responsible for implementing the laws, especially the domestic violence decree. The Fiji Women's Crisis Centre and my ministry are both painfully aware of the serious lack of knowledge of the provisions of the domestic violence decree by those tasked by the law to see its effective implementation. This is an area that my ministry is looking into with serious concerns, and we are making moves to address this with the relevant agencies. Marketing experts know that to sell your products, some of your most effective strategies are advertising and constant messaging, so that your product is constantly in the face of the target consumer market. Likewise, to begin to change socialized mindsets, we all need to sing the same song over and over again like a nursery rhyme until it plays automatically over and over in our people's mind. I'm talking about repeated messaging here. So I will reiterate what Prime Minister Bainimarama told the women parliamentarians last week. We need to do a lot more in our schools to educate our young people that violence generally is unacceptable as a means to resolve conflict, and in the home as much as anywhere else. Women need to be encouraged to stand up more for themselves, to keep repeating the mantra that violence is unacceptable in any setting whatsoever, let alone the family, which is the heart of every society and ought to be a place devoid of conflict and a place of love and acceptance in which our children can be reared and every family member feels safe. The following mantra, I believe, should be part of every family. Real men don't hit women. Real men protect women and treat them as equal. Boys don't make girls cry, and likewise girls don't make boys cry, as we all need to be mindful of bullying, which is rife in our schools now. I know each of you here will go home with a robust toolkit to be good role models and advocates against gender-based violence. At this point, I wish you all well as your journey forward. In our cultures, it is often a lonely road, especially for male advocates. I wish you strength, and I know the Fiji Women's Crisis Centre regional network will provide you all much needed resources, backup and support. With these words, I wish you all safe travels back to your homeland, and of course, a happy Mother's Day to all the mothers here and in your region. And to the gentlemen out here, the message is especially for you. Please treat the special women in your lives as special as they can be. Thank you. Vinaka Bakalevu and Dhanawad.